Hello and welcome to the new segment of The Trout Show, Vinyl to Viral. On our show we'll talk about all things music from the beginning of the first recordings to what's current in the music world. We'll cover the famous artists of the past through those that are big names in the music business now. Plus a few facts about the business of music sprinkled in. Now here's your host, producer, songwriter, creator, and a guy that loves to turn his amp to 11, Rick Troutman aka The Trout. Take it away, Trout.
Hey everybody, it's The Trout and welcome to another episode of Vinyl to Viral, part of the Trout Show Experience. The Trout Show Experience is where I, The Trout, interview great musicians and people involved in the music industry that are located all over the world. That's on my regular podcast and YouTube. But the episode we're going to talk about today is part of Vinyl to Viral. We talk about specific things involved in the music industry. And today's title is called The Disintegration of the Music Business. Yep, it's changed a lot since I started playing guitar. But what I see in the future, this is all my opinion, and what's been going on, I think the music industry is disintegrating as we know it, especially for up-and-coming independent performers. So sit back, grab yourself an adult beverage, and after these words from our great sponsor, the story of this disintegration of music, next on Vinyl to Viral.
The Trout Show is supported by David Smith with Edward Jones. David has years of experience of assisting individuals just like you with reaching their financial possibilities. There are times in our life that we come across financial problems and we don't know what to do. Maybe you had a relative that recently passed away and left you a large sum of money. However, you're not clear on what to do. If you live in the continental United States, I suggest you contact David Smith with Edward Jones at 469-372-1587. David can look at your situation and provide his expertise that he has been providing his clients for years. Don't tackle these situations by yourself. Contact David at 469-372-1587 to help you make decisions that are important to your financial situation. That's David Smith with Edward Jones at 469-372-1587.
Welcome back to Vinyl to Viral with The Trout. Let me give you a mind-blowing statistic. Last year, Spotify, parent company, made $17 billion, that's with a B as in boy, dollars gross. That's a lot of money, isn't it, folks? But let me give you some dichotomy for you to think about. And let me give a little history lesson real quick. For some people listen, they'll say, oh yeah, I remember that. And other people go, I don't know what you're talking about. But here's a little lesson for you to think about. So several years ago, if you brought out an album, the vinyl they call vinyl now, you might make as much as $1 an album. Now, that's for the top performers back then. So if you sold 1 million records, you'd make $1 million. Not hard to figure out. Now, if you sold, not sold, but if people listen to your stream 1 million times, you know how much money you'd make? Maybe $3,000. That's a huge difference, isn't it? So think about the $17 billion that Spotify made, and you know what they pay every time you listen to a song to the performer? 0.004 tenths of a penny. Not even a penny, not even a half a penny, but less than half a penny. It drives me crazy that these companies like Spotify are making so much money and performers are struggling to make a buck. Now, I know how it goes. I'm a performer myself. I release music. Everybody wants to get on the Spotify list. But you're thinking, oh, okay, what about the other streaming companies? What do they pay? Well, Apple pays 0.007, which is a little bit more than half a cent. Amazon Music, 0.008. They're again a little bit more than half a cent. And YouTube. YouTube, if your video is on YouTube and it's music, they pay, here you go, 0.007. It's unbelievable. So you're wondering, how do people make money? You know, it's funny because now musicians are becoming more independent. That's what I think is going to continue to happen. You're going to finally find that people release more music on their own because the labels, in my opinion, have become lazy. I've interviewed hundreds of musicians, and I've heard all the stories about working with big record labels. Now, they all want to work with a big record label because they got money they can put it behind them. But when I say they're lazy, I just saw an article, or heard an article about a major executive at a record label ask how you can make it big in the record business now, music business. Here's what he said. Be different, be original. Of course, that's one of the top things, right? You gotta be good, obviously. But go out and get yourself a whole bunch of people on social media. 100,000 people listen to you, streams, whatever the number is on TikTok or whatever. And then if you got enough people to do that, then we'll come and listen to you. Do you know, and I've heard this from more than one musician, that what record labels do now, executives, somebody goes out and watches TikTok. And on TikTok, if they find somebody that everybody likes, they may grab them and say, hey, we'll sign you a deal. Now, I don't think personally they're looking for a long-term arrangement. I think they're just looking to get somebody that's popular on TikTok or one of the socials, put them out there, make a few bucks, and be gone. It's infuriating for independent artists to try to make a buck. So that's why when you go to a concert and you see a famous performer, you're paying so much money for a ticket. I had a friend of mine went to see a great band that's been around for 40 years. And he told me how much the tickets were. $300 a piece, and he wasn't even close to the stage. You're probably thinking, gee, why are they so much money? Well, that's one of the reasons. They don't get paid any royalties on their songs like they used to. Now, granted, the big players, your Taylor Swifts, people of that ilk, all make a lot of money all the time because they get so many streamings, they get so much merchandise they're selling out. I mean, there's so many artists now that hit $1 billion in worth. It's insane. But then on the other end of that is the independent artists that are just trying to make a buck and get people to listen to them. In my youth, you got a band together, you got well-known in your area, hopefully bigger and bigger, and the record labels would come and listen to you. And at that point, they decide, oh, maybe we should sign a record deal with them. But that doesn't happen much anymore. They're too busy watching videos, TikToks, and things like that to decide what's the next person or next band that's going to be famous. That's why I think it's a disintegration of the music business. So where do we go from here, you say? Well, my suggestion is support your local talent. Go out and watch them, jump on their socials, and more importantly, support them by buying some merchandise, because a lot of times that's the only money they make is on their merch. It's also nice to go out and watch them and pay to go see them, and just let people know how much you like them, because they're struggling. A lot of them will never make it. Believe me, I know. I've talked to hundreds of musicians. Some of them are very good, are still trying to get to the top. So just think about that when you want to support your local musicians. Help them out. Up next, a singer, songwriter, guitar player that died in 1938 that impacted the rock, blues, musician era forever. Right after this.
Elevate your music with expert metadata service with Nisco Music. If you're a composer, producer, or songwriter and you want music to be heard by individuals that purchase music for advertisements, television shows, movies, or just about every place that music is played, you'll need to provide metadata about your song. At Nisco Music, our experienced team will ensure your song has the necessary information for discoverability, especially in the area of sync licensing. Let us help you expand your music opportunities. Why wait? The world is waiting for your music. Visit us today at nizcomusic.com. That's Nisco Music. nizcomusic.com.
Welcome back to Vinyl to Viral, here on The Trout Show. You may have heard a story about a guitarist decades ago that sold his soul to the devil and become famous. There have been a lot of movies, been a lot of talk about that particular artist. Whether it can be proved or not, we'll never know. But the artist's name, Robert Johnson. Born in 1911 and died in 1938. This artist changed the blues music as we know it today. If you've listened to the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, you've heard some of his songs. Over the decades, people have played Standing at the Crossroads, or the short version, Crossroads, probably thousands of times. In fact, Eric Clapton became famous at doing Crossroads at the Royal Albert Hall. So what's the story about Robert Johnson? Well, this is a young man that decided he wanted to play guitar, wasn't very good at it, had some difficulties in his life, but then one day he left and came back and he was a much better player. And people were like, I think he sold his soul to the devil. Well, he did take time out of his life to record 29 songs recorded in San Antonio and Dallas during the 30s. And that's the only evidence we have of him, of those 29 songs that became iconic in the blues industry. Johnson died at the young age of 27 in Greenwood, Mississippi. Nobody ever figured out what happened to him. Rumors was he was poisoned by a jealous husband of a woman he had been flirting with. But his legacy was largely unknown outside the South until we had the blues revival in the 60s. Musicians like Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton cited him as a major influence. His songs have been covered by countless artists, and his influence extends beyond blues into rock, folk, and other genres. His work was discovered, or I should say rediscovered, in the 60s when all these great players started performing it. So here he was, all these years later, influencing musicians that we still listen to today. Johnson was inducted in the Blues Hall of Fame in 1980, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986, and in 2006, he received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. People have studied his music for decades. And whether Robert Johnson made a deal with the devil, we'll never know. What I do know is those 29 songs changed music forever. I'm the Trout, and let me give a special shout out to our supporter David Smith with Edward Jones and Nisco Music. Thanks for listening, and remember what I always say, it's only rock and roll, but I love it. Till next time, see ya.